Hello and welcome to the SweetGeorgia Show. I am your host, Felicia Lowe, and the founder and creative director of SweetGeorgia Yarns, an artisan yarn company based in Vancouver, Canada, and also the School of SweetGeorgia, our online fiber arts membership and learning community. Today, we are going to bring together the world of high-tech engineering and design of high-speed tools, together with the tactile, slow craft of hand spinning and the fiber arts. Joining me today is David Giles, one of the owners and operators of Daedalus Spinning Wheels. This is a company that specializes in designing and fabricating modern spinning wheels. They are flipping the script and creating new innovations in the fiber arts world that we have never seen before. David and his wife Rebecca are the creators of the Flock. It's a lineup of carbon fiber, aerodynamic, precision e-spinners that have earned cult status among spinners. We're going to talk about how David and Rebecca got started and also how they brought a very unique approach to technology and mechanics to our craft rooms. I'm especially interested in the development and progression of these very special e-spinners and also hearing more about the brand new e-spinner release, the Dove. David, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yes. So we met probably almost a year ago, I think, on a Zoom call. And I remember I was absolutely blown away by the energy and the vision that you have for so much of what we do in the fiber arts. And so I've always known that I wanted to sit down and have a proper chat with you about all the things that you've been inventing and building and sharing with us spinners and now also weavers. And then I heard that you gave a State of the Flock address just a few days ago. And so there's lots of new and interesting releases that I would love to hear more about as well. But first, just to give people sort of a bit of a background, can we start at the beginning? And if you want to talk a little bit about how you and Rebecca founded and started Daedalus Spinning Wheels in the first place, where did the idea come from?
Oh, that's great. Originally back in 2018. Our history, at least before that, I had a lot of different engineering backgrounds and I'd done a lot of different engineering jobs and I was kind of in between. I was working with aeronautical engineering projects that I was trying to develop and start a side business. And that was kind of the avenue or the area I was in my head when all this started. My wife has an art history degree from Savannah College of Art and Design. She's got a lot of color theory and art knowledge. And she was a knitter and wanted to get more involved. And she wanted to start dyeing yarn, or at least the subject came up like, hey, we could dye yarn. And I had chemistry in college. And so I thought, with my chemistry and you understanding the color theory, maybe together we'd make a good dyeing couple. And so that's how we started out. That was spotted Ewe Fibers. And so that was our first business into the fiber world. And it was wonderful. It was just a really unique experience that the whole crew, the fiber community, it's just, I don't know, it's just a really interesting niche of people to be in, and as friends and as a business at the same time. But at the point that we started dyeing yarn and we wanted to start dyeing fiber. And dyeing fiber, if you've ever dyed, it's completely different. It's a whole nother set of rules really from yarn. And we didn't know how to spin. And so we thought, well, we can't dye fiber and feel honest and justified in making sure that we can provide a good product unless we know how to spin so that we understand how this fiber is used. And so we both learned how to spin. And at that point is where we kind of went down the rabbit hole. We started looking at spinning wheels. We bought a treadle wheel or a couple of different treadle wheels and learned how to spin. But at the point that it was time to build an e-spinner, the engineer in me, I was like, oh, no, I don't know about these. I mean, surely I can just put something together. I can design something and get it to do the purpose more or less. But from my aeronautical engineering background, I had a lot of really cool exotic materials on hand that I had experience in actually using, like the carbon fibers and the titaniums and the aluminums. All of that come from the aeronautical experience I had before. And so the first wheel I built, I was like, I'm going to make it really high tech. Like I'm going to make it so high tech it's going to be, I actually named it the Blackbird because I wanted it to be after the SR-71 Blackbird, the spy plane from the late 60s. And so I dumped carbon fiber in it and titanium and aluminum and just poured my heart into it. And finally delivered it to my wife and said, here's your spinning wheel. And I was just going to go on about my way and go on about my day job. She posts some pictures up on the internet. And now all of a sudden people are saying, hey, it'd be really cool if could I have one? What would it cost if you'd make me one? And I didn't really entertain it. I was like, yeah, this was not for that. This wasn't in that direction. And, but then when we had over 24, that's when, in a month, that's where I was like, oh boy, there really is kind of a vacuum here. And so I looked at all the e-spinners that were out on the market, and at that time, that's 2018, just barely pre-COVID. And I tried to figure out, like, where could I fit myself in? Like, with what I know and how I design things, and my expertise coming from aeronautical engineering, I said, what do I need to do? And I felt like the only natural place was to come in to try to use something, to try to use my scientific background so that I could understand the physics and try to design a machine that actually performed as well or better than everything that was out on the market and cost the same or less. That was my original goal, make something better for less. And if we can do that, then I don't have to push people to buy it. It'll just be obvious. And all of a sudden, we got a bunch of sales. And so immediately I started rethinking things and like, hey, we've got a plan for this. We took the first run of Blackbirds and talked to our customers and said, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? And then I went through and took everything that I learned and revamped and came out with the Starling. And so another bird name. And so coming from the old airplane, the aeronautical days, I just felt like all the wheels because before this, I was actually building planes. And so now I'm building birds, but it's still kind of the same energy and feel and emotion that I had in designing them. We had an expression building planes that every electron was sacred. So, if you did something that was inefficient, you had to point your finger at that. And so we just stayed awake at night overthinking these efficiencies and trying to make something that performed as well as it possibly could. And so I did that just over and over with Starling, and Starling grew and people liked it. And before you knew it, we started making more and more different wheels. And so that was really the origin story of us. It happened like a forest fire. It just instantly went up and took off. And every year I've set goals, and every year we've met them or exceeded them. And so now we've gone from a business with just 2 employees, my wife and myself. And now I think we have maybe 8 total employees in the company, and I think we're still looking to hire at this point. So it's awesome, especially with our new products too that I hinted at. We've got a lot more irons in the fire that are actually coming to fruition. And trying to find good help. And I try to hire within the fiber community people who are skilled and already know what they're talking about with these devices. And so that way, when they build one, they know what it's supposed to sound like and how it's supposed to look and how it's supposed to feel. And I think that means a lot. And honestly, it's with their help and their skilled labor is really what's made Daedalus what it is.
Mm-hmm. It's an amazing story to hear about, like, how you guys have made that pivot from dyeing fiber, dyeing yarn, and then now into creating these tools that obviously there was a massive need for with all the popularity of these. I know that I have a Starling as well. I have the version 3 of the Starling. And the first time I ever saw one of your e-spinners was through Debbie Held. So Debbie Held is a spinning instructor. She came and taught a course for us for the School of SweetGeorgia, and she brought her Magpie, which is another bird, and I'd never seen anything like it. It was so different. She's like, yeah, it's very different. Like, the aesthetics are going to be different. The colors are going to be different. It just looks different. Can you talk a little bit more about the design of, like, all of your e-spinners? Like, why do you choose carbon fiber? What does that bring to it? Why is there 3D printed parts in it? Why is there aluminum in it? Like, what are all the things that make up this particular machine?
Right. I have been accused before of over-engineering. Like, this is an over-engineered product and it doesn't need to be this nice. And I have been accused of that. I can't say I'm 100% guilty. My design motif around electric spinning wheels starts with the motor. Every bit of research I did on e-spinners that were out there, the only problems that really came up was my motor overheats, my motor needed to be replaced, my motor didn't have the power to do this job, it slows down when I do this. Everything seemed motor-centric. And that happened to be one very specific area of expertise I had from my previous work history, was I understood motors. I knew how to break down motor charts and take a motor for a very specific task, and then not just theoretically which motor applies itself to a job, but I could actually break it down and test it on a bench and understand how it really applied itself, and to try to make sure that I get an overkill situation. I don't want a motor that just barely does the job or just barely survives. I want a motor that's twice as big as it needs to be to do the work. And that way, if a person doesn't necessarily, maybe they're less experienced and they're more of a novice, and they ask for a lot of tension or more tension than they need to actually do the spinning, the job spinning that they need, just because they don't know any better. My wheels, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to slow them down. They're just going to trudge through it like a dump truck. Now, because I've done that, I spend my money and my weight allowance in motor. And that's what makes Daedalus wheels so good, is it starts off with the motor. I say I spend my money, I buy an expensive motor, and I spend my weight allowance in motor. And so that also means I've got motors that weigh 4 and 5 times as much as the competitors. Their chassis that hold all the components are made out of wood or other heavier type substances. And so they'll still be, the final weight will still be in the same range of 3, 4, 5 pounds. But instead of wood, I've got all my weight in motor. So if I attach that to a big wooden structure, now my wheel weighs a lot more than theirs. And so in order to keep the overall weight light, or the same as the competitors, basically, the chassis specifically, I have to keep light. And so rather than just have a board that everything's nailed to, which would be plenty strong, I have to kind of use my brains a little bit and try to figure out which way does it need to be strong, and can I design a 3D printed part that will support this structure, and then the carbon fiber just kind of bonds everything together. It's super light and super strong, and it costs a little bit more. But at the same time, this is a tool that I didn't design to be disposable. I designed it to last a lifetime. And so if this is something that you pick up every day, if it's 8 ounces lighter because of my use of carbon fiber, I just feel like that adds up after a while. And so, so long story short, the carbon fiber I use to keep my overall weight low, because I've spent so much weight in motor and my other accessories. And my other accessories aren't hot metal or cheap steels. I mean, like for instance, my axles are actually chromoly plated linear rods, and so they're used in precision machines. They vary in diameter, and they waver less than I think I've mathed it out. It was less than 3 human blood cells is how much variance I get in my diameters. And because of that, I can pick very specific bearings that fit very nice and very tight, very quiet, high speed, high performance. My braking systems use aluminum drums, and I think still on the market, at least I've never seen anybody else who uses anything like a metal braking drum. And the reason I had to go to that was my wheels got so powerful because of the big motors, and for people who can spin really fast and do these heavy jobs, that I needed materials that could handle that heat of that really serious job. And to handle heat, you want a metal that's going to shed heat really well. And aluminum's one of the best. And that's another expense. I have to have those custom made and CNC made. And so that drives the price up a little bit. But now you have a performance machine, something that no matter how fast you run it or no matter what you ask it to do, it's not going to wear out. It's not going to sweat. It's not going to suffer. It's going to get the job done. And so that's the whole Daedalus recipe, secret sauce, is all of those examples.
Yeah, I mean, before, when I was using e-spinners, I'd started to use e-spinners, and we had made a PDF like ages ago looking at comparing all the different e-spinners that were available at that time. And these e-spinners were going up to about 1,800 revolutions per minute. And then I started to look into your website and all of the different models that you have. And the Starling that I'm using is like easily over 2,000 RPM, lace flyers up to 3,000 RPM, and then you have another model, the Falcon, that goes up to 4,000. Like, it's almost more than double the top speed. How are you managing to do this? Is it's more than just the aluminum, right? Like, how are you getting these to go so fast, and how can spinners keep up with this?
Right. And so there's a couple of different angles. First, I get people who say, well, nobody ever spins that fast. And a lot of people would tell me that, they're just joshing you. People don't actually spin that fast. And then I met people that spin that fast, and they could sit down and show me. And then they explained to me. One of my things is I try to be humble enough to identify people who are more intelligent than me on a subject and listen to them. And so when I come across these spinners that have this type of skill, and what it falls into is like Uber lace, the super fine type spinning, and also short staples. And so the common short staple is cotton. But there's others out there. But when you're spinning a short staple fiber, you need a lot of twist in every inch. It needs an actual lot of twist in every inch. And if you're spinning on a wheel that's 1,800 RPM and you're trying to spin cotton on it, you'll spend a lot of time what we say waiting for twist to accrue. And so you've got it drafted and you're holding it and you're just counting in your head, waiting for the twist to accrue. And then you feed it onto the bobbin and you draft again. And so they showed me this, and they said, well, so if it was faster, I wouldn't have that wait time between drafts. And if I'm a production spinner, That's money in my pocket. If I can spin twice as fast, I make twice as much money per hour. And so for production spinners, that's really like Falcon at the 4,000 RPM. It was designed really for people who were just obsessed with short staples. I called it the cotton killer. But also, if you're a production spinner in short staples, this spinning wheel will actually make you more money per hour than anything else that's out there. Now, as far as the physics are concerned, the first spinning wheel that I took that I tried in high speed was Magpie. And it is a chassis. It was in production. It was big. It was hardy. It had a big motor. And I said, well, this is what I'm going to try to push up and see how fast I can get it. And then instantly the physics just fell on its face as far as trying to have a big flyer. As it turns out, you can't just take any flyer and just turn the speed up and have it work. It might spin that fast, but it's not necessarily going to be good to spin on. There might too much take up. If the bobbin is too latent behind the flyer, there'll just be too much inherent take up. Ballooning is another issue. And I read a book, like I swear it was an inch thick, on just the mathematics behind ballooning yarn. It was written for mills and for industry. And it's just mind-boggling calculus. And so I go through all of this, and we said, well, we've got to scrap this big bobbin. And we need to design a bobbin that's designed from scratch for this high-speed type work. And that's where Falcon really came into being, with the help of James Longdraw Perry over in Britain. He's a good friend of mine, and test spinner, and my lead, like really high-speed test spinner, cottons and stuff. And I worked with him back and forth. I'd send it to him, he'd send it back, I'd send him new stuff, and we just kept going back and forth. And the secret with Falcon, honestly, the problem was, like, why can't I just turn my spinning wheel up to 4,000 RPM and spin on it? The primary reason is the bobbin itself is just, its RPM is going to be so far behind the flyer that there's just going to be too much take up for fine yarn, period. There's no other question. There's no argument. I've been down this road. Physics won't allow it. And so we've got to do some stuff. We've got to, number one, keep all the assembly short so the ballooning isn't as bad. And we got to keep it light. But the real problem is trying to find a way to keep the bobbin up to speed with the flyer. And things that keep the bobbin slowed down are parasitic frictions, like the bearings that you use, and kind of mechanical sort of things. But then aerodynamics, up at the high end, aerodynamics is where your frictions and what wants to retard the bobbin's RPM. It just so happens that I've got a lot of experience with aerodynamics. And so this was a place that I could apply myself, where I was like, yes, finally, I'm on the scene. I've got this book that I read before, all this schooling and stuff. And this is where I can finally make something new that no one else has ever done that actually works. And it's an aerodynamic coupling between the flyer and the bobbin. And so basically, I use blades that push air into the bobbin, and I use blades on that end of the bobbin that receive the air. And so it's being blown and pushed along with the flyer. And so the testing that I did, monitoring the RPM of the two different sides of the head, when I put in the coupling, all of a sudden the bobbin speed just went through the roof and caught right up to the flyer. And so now when they're spinning if the flyer is spinning at 4,000 RPM, so is the bobbin, more or less. It'll be a little behind it, of course, but it's not going to be at 2,000 or something that's just so slow that it's unusable. And so this aerodynamic coupling, I'm actually pursuing a patent on it at the time, but it's the one unique thing that nobody else does, that I came up with on my own, and it allows over 4,000 RPM uber fine spinning with super, super light take up. And it's the only wheel on the market that does that. Is it a popular wheel? No. Did I build Falcon to get rich? No. I built Falcon as an experiment in the physics to teach myself what was really going on, and to just prove that I could do it. I was mad that I took the other flyer and turned it up on speed and thought I would be done in a day, and then ended up being 9 months worth of work. But at the end of it, I have Falcon. And for people who are into, like I say, if you're a cotton spinner, I highly recommend you check out Falcon.
So this is so interesting, because like you're talking about the design of the flyer is designed to look at the air going into it and then the air coming out of it, and you're measuring things. And then that is all helping with the rotation of the flyer to make sure that it's keeping up with all of these things. You've thought about all of these things. And so this is why it now makes sense to me why, when I had borrowed a Starling from Debbie Held, and I was using it, and I think I took a photo of it where I had cross-laced it. And then I got a message from you guys, and then you're like, no, don't do that. Don't cross-lace your flyer. And I was like, what have I done wrong? And now I
Uh,
realize it's because you've thought of everything already, and cross-lacing should not be something that you have to do in order to manage the take-up and have it like be a little bit lighter. So that was interesting.
no, you're exactly right. The whole cross-lacing debacle argument was a fire here among Daedalus employees themselves and our test spinners, where we had people who did and people who didn't. If you don't know about cross-lacing, people cross-lace as an effort or kind of a band-aid to reduce take-up on a wheel. And so say you've adjusted the tension system on your wheel and you've got it as low as you can, and it's still not low enough, then you can kind of go to cross-lacing. And it's sort of a Band-Aid patch. Like a Louette S10 is a very hungry wheel. It has a very high take-up no matter what you do. Even if you remove the tension belt entirely, you can still spin a fingering yarn on it. And so that's a candidate. If you wanted to spin lace, you would remove your tension belt and then you would cross-lace 2 or 3 times. And in that, you might be able to spin a lace on a Louette S10. Our wheels are designed specifically around that super light take up to begin with. And so we try to encourage people, like, don't cross-lace by default. You don't necessarily have to. But then there's an argument with cross-lacing that it helps kind of fill in little valleys. If you have peaks and valleys in your bobbin, that cross-lacing kind of adds a little variable that allows it to find the valleys. I'm not so sure on all that. We definitely won't send you a ticket or pull your Daedalus card if we catch you cross-lacing, but you might get an email that says, hey, try it without and see if you can get your take-up low enough, with just because it's been designed to do that for you. And so I think maybe that's the group that you fell into there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a number of different models. I think when I first, years ago, when I first stumbled on your website, I was maybe overwhelmed by how many different models there are. Now I realize that there's like a kind of e-spinner for every single different kind of spinner. I think a lot of manufacturers have one e-spinner because it's almost like a one size fits all, and like a multi-purpose type of spinning tool. But I think that you have very, very specific ones for very specific purposes. Like you mentioned, the Falcon is super high speed. Can you go through some of the different models that you have and just describe a little bit about how they're different?
Oh, sure. Really, Starling, I kind of describe as my all-around wheel. The one wheel that if people come up to me at a festival and I say, do you spin yarn? And they say, oh yeah, I spin yarn. If I don't know anything else, there's a really good chance that Starling's going to work for you now and that you're not going to outgrow it, because Starling has at least a 12-ounce bobbin. We have some people put 16 ounces of a single on it. And then it's got the other flyers too. It's got an art flyer and it's got a super lace flyer, a high-speed lace flyer as well. And so no matter which way you want to go in your yarn spinning life, Starling's going to be able to either grow with you or it's going to be able to take care of you, and you'll never outgrow it. Magpie was sort of Starling on steroids. If you just make it larger and give it a larger motor and a larger bobbin and just everything about it bigger. I hate to oversimplify it because there's a lot of mechanics that went into that growth. It wasn't just scale up and print. There was a lot of mechanics that had to be adjusted to still make it polite to spin with. And but a Magpie I consider my production spinning wheel. And so it's my most expensive spinning wheel at this point. It has an art head and a massive art head. It could swallow golf balls almost. And so if you're really serious about the biggest textures of art yarns on an e-spinner, Magpie can do it. The Magpie Art Flyer, I think, is the best art spinner out there, but I made it, so I'm kind of biased. But then the standard flyer on Magpie can do just about everything else that, another you won't ever outgrow it type of situation. It's got a huge capacity, like 20 ounces. That's 5 skeins of yarn easily on a bobbin. But like I say, those are kind of the high end. But then there are the people who say, well, I need something smaller. Maybe I don't need a pound on a bobbin. I want something that I can sit on my desk beside my computer. And so that's where Sparrow kind of evolved from. Sparrow is just almost like if you take Starling and scale it down a little bit. Slightly smaller motor. It goes from a 12-ounce bobbin to a 5-6-ounce bobbin. So like I say, you could get the feel that everything's just more compact, but I didn't cut any corners. Sparrow still uses the same aluminum drum and tension system, the same high quality motors. It still turns basically the same speed. There's no real caveats other than bobbin capacity and on the size of the orifice too. Starling can spin heavier yarns, where sparrow, being little, was more restricted to a 6 millimeter orifice and kind of the lighter sides of yarns. But when I say the lighter sides of yarn, sparrow can still spin a heavy enough yarn, like it could ply into a worsted pretty easily. And so that still seems to suit people who spin a knit or spin a crochet or even really spin a weave. So that's the big three. Martin came out. Martin is the wheel that's in a box. So it's built into its own travel box, which I thought was pretty cool. When I was designing it, it was like building a ship in a bottle. I don't know, maybe I'm dating myself, but kids back in the 70s, we used to get kits where we could order out of the back of a magazine, and you take a Coke bottle and you could assemble a ship. You could actually put sand in there, and you could put the little parts of the boat in and use tweezers and glue it all together and erect the sails, and you'd have an entire ship in a bottle. That's really what the design life was for Martin, for me on the computer, because I had to design the box first. I wanted to find a box that I could use, just buy, but I know I wanted Martin to live a long time. And if I couldn't get that very specific box, if I designed parts that fit in a very specific box, if I couldn't get that exact box in a year or 2 years, I'd be heartbroken. And so I said, I'm just going to design my own box. And so Martin has its own 3D printed ABS box. And like I say, the design process, I built the box first, but then I'd have to like open the box and work inside from different angles. And it was very challenging. And I like challenging. And so it was very satisfying as far as the design project goes. And it's an excellent wheel. It's a great travel wheel because it just collapses down. You can put like 4 ounces of a braid in it and close it up and take it with you. Oh, and just recently, I announced on the State of the Flock with Martin, I knew there's something I was leaving out. Martin, by default, has the controls on the right-hand side. And so the speed knob, the tension knob, the direction switch, everything's on the right-hand side. And I'm right-handed, and I don't believe left-handed people even exist in this world, evidently. And so after enough emails, they said, why can't it be on? I literally had a lady walk up and said, oh, I love this. And she's like, do you make one with the controls on the left-hand side? And I went, no, that's it. She went, bye. And walked off. And so I realized, I was like, people can make decisions that quick. Maybe I'll just offer it with a left-handed version. And so I did some redesign work. And now Martin, if you're interested in Martin, you get on a queue and you can ask for whether you want the controls on the right, controls on the left, as well as choosing the custom colors and stuff that come with it. Travel wheel, awesome for traveling, but also people who live in small spaces, people who live in campers, tiny homes, small apartments where space is a commodity. Martin's something that can collapse up in a nice little square or a cube, and you can put it on a shelf and you can stack stuff on top of it, and it just fits nice. On that same theory, though, my most recent one is Dove. The big secret, the thing I've been hiding, dying to talk about for months and months, is Dove. And that's our, and it's also happens to be our lowest cost wheel to date at $399 is what we're offering for sale on January 24th online. It's just huge. But I designed it also to be a travel wheel as well. And so Dove is, it's kind of a medium-sized package. It's between Sparrow and Starling, both in like capacity and ability. But at the same time, Sparrow has a lot of tricks that this one doesn't. But Dove, the reason Dove is nice is it breaks down into where it can pack or for an airplane and a suitcase or a travel bag with no tools whatsoever. The whole thing just snaps together magnetically or otherwise. And then when you're done spinning, you can just pull it all apart. And so it's kind of the ultimate travel wheel as far as that goes, as far as how small it breaks down. But again, even though I wanted to bring it in at a low price point to try to approach entry-level spinners, people, I have a drop spindle and I'm looking at e-spinners. What do I buy? And Daedalus historically has come in kind of in the middle of the price ranges and up as far as e-spinners go. And like I say, I talked about that earlier. I mean, I can't cut corners to change performance. And I think that's what kind of limited me. But after all these years, I really went back to the task and said, all right, I want to keep everything that makes Daedalus Daedalus. I want to keep the Daedalus feel. When they close their eyes and spin on it, they're going to say, this is a Daedalus wheel, I can tell, because it's lively and polite. But then I had to also make it cost effective. And so I didn't cut any performance corners, but I did take away some of the features or the abilities that I have in my other wheels, maybe features I thought were optional or things that maybe you would pursue down the road. But as far as an intro to spinning, a beginning spinner, an intermediate spinner, even my advanced test spinners, they're spinning on Dove now. Like, I mean, they tested it, but I thought they would just put it on a shelf. And yet they're still, it's so small and it goes around with me and it still has an 8-ounce capacity and it just kind of fits their needs. And so I think it's something that people could start out with, not only because of the price point, but also it's just easy to learn on, and so they can refine their spinning skills, but then they can grow with it as well. And then down the road, if they want to upgrade into something larger, then we're talking more Starling Avenue or something like that. But as far as getting your feet wet and a good all around wheel, I've just really, really poured every bit of my emotion into Dove, trying to find a way to get the parts as cheap as I can, to have it assemble as quickly as I can, but not cut quality control and the way we check these wheels out before they go out to the customer. All those things still happen. And this is my best stab at it. This is as low a cost as I can get that still has that Daedalus recipe, that Daedalus flavor, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I think it's quite amazing that you're making these things with the intention of being able to allow the spinner to be more portable, like to be able to, flat pack them. Like you also have a Starling now that's also available as flat pack, I think, to be able to take them apart and travel with them, I think is really, really important. I think as more people want to sort of meet each other in real life and bring their spinning tools with them and gather, this is all stuff that's going to make that more possible. I know that when I went to spinning retreats before, I bring my giant treadle wheel and put it in the car, and I'd have to drive it somewhere, and it would take up an entire seat. Like I put it in the passenger side of my car and put a seatbelt on it and all this kind of stuff. Like it took up the space of another human being. But now, like just to be able to put it all into a bag and then take it with you, it just makes it so much easier. And it makes that whole idea much more accessible, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, if you were going to fly with your treadle wheel, you'd have to buy another plane ticket. Like you know what I'm saying? So it is. And I think at guild meetings, everybody shows up with their treadle wheel, like seat buckled in the seat. Yeah. And it all kind of made me giggle. And e-spinners just kind of brought all that scale down without really sacrificing a lot of performance or ability. So I think it's the way to go. Now, I can't say where I only make e-spinners, am I like a treadle snob? I own treadle wheels. And there's still something to get to it. Like, just because if I have a bicycle and I buy a motorcycle, that doesn't mean I'll never ride my bike again. Mm-hmm. And so everything has what it's good at, or what like a lady actually told me, she said, the reason I like my treadle wheel is my brain controls the speed without me thinking about it. And so when there's a problem, I naturally slow down, and not necessarily to a stop, but say I have a slub or a wep, then I can stop and work it out, or I can slow down and work it out and speed back up. And my brain never has to actively do it. Whereas if I have a mechanical thing, I have to reach and change my speed and then fix my problem and go back up. And I can appreciate that. But at the same time, if I've got like 4 hours of spinning, if you've ever spun multiple hours on a treadle wheel, it's a lot. And I'm kind of old now. I'm almost 29 years old now, and I've got some lower back problems. And a treadle wheels, you have to attack them a certain way. The pedals, you have to have a certain seat at a certain angle and good posture. And if any of that goes off, and all bets are off. Where at e-spinner, you can sit just about wherever you want. And so I think that's really helped a lot of people, especially people who have more problems with like diabetic neuropathy. I mean, there's all types of people that I've run into and customers to say, I just can't treadle anymore. I love my treadle wheel. I just can't treadle anymore. And so, yeah, I feel like we fill a niche. And like I say, I wanted to bring in the technology to try to make it a forever tool. I'm very excited about something that lasts a very long time. And that was my goal.
So we've talked a lot about like the machine itself and how, the materials that you've used and how you've made it go very, very fast. One of the other qualities that I know about the Daedalus wheels that I've used are that they're very, very quiet. And then I discovered that you're using another different technology for the flyer system in order so that way they can be very, very quiet. Can you talk a little bit about that whole bearing system for the flyer?
Right. The bearings are huge. I mean, hugely important, and they're overlooked in designs, in my opinion. Is it a bearing? Does it fit? Yes. How much does it cost? Buy the cheapest one. Check. And when I went down that road, I got a lot of noisy bearings, and I mean noisy that I could hear with my human ear at a distance. You can hear, hey, there's a rattle, there's a click, there's something going on. And if you've ever been at a meeting where somebody clicks a pen when they're bored, if you want to be murdered by me, start clicking a pen. I can't, those little things like that, a rhythmic ticking. And so I ended up ordering every bearing that I could order in the world. I ordered them from every country, France, Sweden, England, China, Japan, the United States, Mexico. Believe it or not, Mexico makes some bearings. I ordered all these bearings from all these different factories, and then I listened to them. And by listening to them, what I mean is I took a mechanic's stethoscope. So it's like a doctor's stethoscope that has a special end on it, a probe that's used for more mechanical things. And car mechanics will use them to listen to valves in a motor and stuff like that. And so I took my mechanic's stethoscope and I listened to all these bearings and to try to find the quietest ones. And then I would open them all up and actually look at what their guts were. And so what's the quality of the machining of the inside and the quality of the plating on the balls themselves. And so I really went through, and at this point, I tell people I probably could still do this. It's been a couple of years, but if you give me a bearing, I can listen to it with a stethoscope and I can tell you what country it came from. And a lot of times I can pick, if it came from China, I can tell you which of the factories it came from because I know them so well now by sound. And as it turns out, not all bearings are good. Not all bearings are bad. People, Chinese bearings are crap. No, they're not necessarily. French bearings are great. Well, some are and some aren't. And so long story short is I went through every bearing I could possibly get, and I finally settled on the ones that were the quietest. They happened to be the quietest because they were the best. They were just the best produced as far as the tolerances inside the bearing and the quality of the overall piece. And then the actual lubrication that they use. There are bearings from Eastern Bloc, Soviet Union era machines that are still in use today. And so they pack them with basically cosmoline. And when you buy the cheapest bearing you possibly can, it'll smell like a 1930s Soviet rifle for that reason. And they're horrible. And so in those bearings, and when I do these blind tests with motors, with bearings, with anything, I don't think about price. Price is the absolute worst thing I could base a decision on for a variable bringing a product into my machines, in my opinion. Now, I don't waste money. I try not to waste money, but I want to make sure I have the best performing thing that I could. And with the bearings, that's the way it worked out too. And so my flyer bearings, if they have more, say the cheaper bearings that I talked about, the big maiden bearing on the front of the flyer, if I used a cheaper, older one from 1930s Soviet era, it actually has so much internal resistance in the bearing itself that the motor system itself is doing a lot of work just to move it, just to move the bearing. And then it's your job as the spinner to say, hey, I want you to twist my yarn. I want you to pull it onto the bobbin. And the motor's like, I got a lot of work I'm doing already, man. And so, and people don't realize that that when we're working with every electron is sacred. Now, didn't I say that? And so when we're working with a fixed motor package like that, we got to make sure that those electrons go into work and that they don't go into heat and they inefficiency and they don't go into turning a bearing because it's filled with like jelly. And so that comes into it. So why are my flyers quiet? My flyers are quiet because when I designed them originally, I used a mechanic's stethoscope to choose the exact brands of bearing. And not only when I design them, when I actually produce them, and the quality, part of the quality control before wheels go out and get delivered to their customers, I go through with a stethoscope. And if I hear anything that I don't like, and so every once in a while, I'll catch a bearing that has a little piece of debris in it. And you may be able to hear it with your ear, you may not, but you put a stethoscope on it, you really will. And I do a simple thing when I find that. I throw it away and I put a brand new bearing on. And that type of mentality is lost now because I feel like manufacturers, if it works, put it on. I don't think there's another manufacturer on earth that would go, listen to a bearing and go, I don't like the way it sounds, and literally throw it in the garbage. But that's part of the Daedalus experience. When you buy my wheels, you expect it to be quieter than the other wheels. And that's one of the things that I use, or one of the tricks that I use.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I didn't know any of that. I just knew that my Starling was super quiet and that I could spin with it and we could watch TV in the evenings and it was great.
Right.
But now with all of this attention to detail and all of this sort of innovation, all of the design background and experience that you have, I know I can see that you're bringing this into other aspects of the fiber arts and you were expanding. The first thing I saw was the roly-poly, which is amazing and produces these absolutely gorgeous balls of yarn that have been wound with this tool. It's amazing. I talk about it all the time. I love it. And then the Penelope, the band loom that you guys are also developing for weavers. Can you talk a little bit about, what other pain points are you trying to solve in the fiber arts world? Where are you looking? What's making you curious?
Yeah, e-spinners. I've gone through and with my models, because I design them in house and I produce the parts in house. If there's a change I want to make to one, I make it, and then the very next morning, the parts that are being produced in my house have the updated change. And so, because of that, I say that my wheels designs evolve very rapidly. So the little things I don't like, I get it washed out. And I've gone through and I have genuinely nothing left that I want to change on the existing wheel designs. And as a designer, I really needed more avenues to get out into and to do different things. And so the fiber tools, we came out with Roly Poly, the ball winder, the Nostopede style ball winder, and Whirligig is a power skater and Swift. And we came out with those, and that was a wonderful. I'll say this: I could talk forever about Roly Poly, but two, two things. One, mathematically, as an engineer, you look at it in a CAD program and say, well, the yarn needs to come here and the cord needs to be here, and this is how the flyer moves, and that's millimetrically perfect, and the ball will be perfect. And then I built that, and it sucked. And again, so by suck means the ball, the yarn would fall off one end of the ball. It would slough. It would kind of start here and go there. And I was like, no, science says this can't be happening. And literally, I had to finally get down to where I would move, and I would move that core a millimeter, up, back and forth, and up and down. And when I mean move, I mean spend all night making design changes, print all new parts overnight, assemble them the next day, just to have a machine that's 1 millimeter different than the one yesterday, and see if it was in the right direction, just like an eye test, better or worse, better or worse. And I did that over the course of weeks until I got that core in the right position that when you start a ball, that it wants to stay a ball, that even a new person that kind of doesn't have the tension exactly right going in, or, as your learning process or getting used to it, it still works okay. So Roly Poly defied all science. The other thing about Roly Poly was, we, as dyers, we had over 1,000 skeins of yarn here in the house, and I balled them all. In testing these designs, I balled thousands of Nostopede balls of yarn, and I had no more balls of yarn. And so I said, I need to put these back into skeins so that I can ball them again and continue testing. So I built Whirligig, the skeiner, as a tool to help me design my other tool. But then somebody saw it in the background of one of the pictures that I had, one of my friends, and said, hey, make me one of those. And then it was in their pictures, and then it became a product. And so Whirligig, the skeiner, was never intended to go public. I designed it for myself as a tool to help me design a tool. But that's how those two items came about. The weaving, my test spinners, the Daedalus family, the group of people, my confidants, my friends, everybody I love around here, a large portion of them are weavers. And not just hobby weavers. Some of them are very serious weavers, very adept. And so I've just kind of osmotically been exposed to this idea with looms, and we have looms, and my wife weaves. And so I kind of understand how they work, of course, but it's just an avenue where now I'm looking at that. I'm saying, here's a technology that's older. People make the same stuff. I mean, everybody's looms are a little different, but I mean, they really kind of do the same job, more or less. But how can I bring the Daedalus recipe into this? How can I build looms that still work the same way, but are more up to date or stronger, more rigid, just some sort of performance quality increase in a loom, and I'm doing everything I can with it. Penelope is the band loom, and it's a product now. You can buy them online when we have them in stock. They're really popular. But it was my first foray into looms, and I needed something small to make sure I didn't get ahead of my feet in the stumble. And I really like it. I learned a lot. I said a weekend. I said, I'm going to start this project on Thursday. On Monday, we're going to be in production. And it was so different than that. There were so many little things about it when I show them to people and my testers. And so we go back and forth. And finally, we got Penelope out, got it in production. And it has some carbon fiber, of course, because it's going to look like Daedalus. But I mean, it's in a good place, and it's for a good reason. It's not laden with carbon fiber and overpriced because of it by any means. It still comes in at a normal price point. It's kind of along with everybody else's looms. Where do I go from here? That's looking more at just the natural progression of looms. And so, I mean, I'll be honest, I said it at the State of the Flock address. My next big project I want to tackle is going to be a table loom. We don't know the exact sizes yet, but it's going to be maybe as small as 16 inches and as large as a meter. I'll probably have three different options of width involved there. I'm going to be bringing in some exotic materials. I can't talk about exactly what I'm going to use and where I'm going to use it, but it's not going to be for show. Like when you see it, I think you're going to really think like that's a machine. Like I'm wanting to take a wooden loom that's a beautiful, artful piece and make it a little bit more industrial, a little bit more rigid, a little bit more steampunk, if you'll let me use that word.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's the direction I'm wanting to go with it. And then the table loom I'm using to cut my teeth on bigger stuff. So they say, will you ever develop a floor loom? Yeah, if I live long enough, I guess, because I mean, I spent a lot of time trying to get these things perfect. And like they say, the Penelope project stretched out on me, and I'm sure the table loom, I've been in the daydream phase on the table loom for months. And that's unusual for me, where I'm looking at all the different options and how I can put them all together. Before I ever sketch the first thing, I just sit and daydream. Usually that process takes a week or two. And I've been doing it for months on this table loom. So I'm super excited to actually get to paper and get some prototypes out. Do I have an ETA for it? Absolutely not. I have no visibility on that whatsoever. I will release it when it is done.
Mm-hmm. That sounds incredible. How many shafts are you kind of playing with right now for this table loom?
There's some arguments. It won't be less than 8. It probably won't be more than 16. I see modular type castle systems where we can swap things in and out. And so I'm playing with all those ideas. And like I say, I'm taking feedback from all of my people that work for me and advise me, and we'll see where we go. But like I say, it won't be less than 8. It shouldn't be more than 16.
Any chance you can plug it into a CompuDobby?
Floor looms down the road and the CompuDobbies. I got one guy specifically, every time he sees me, he puts a bug in my ear about it. He wants me to redesign the whole technology. And I'm like, well, let's start small. Honestly, that's what I'm most excited about. Like where this path goes, as far as the loom path goes, as far as me as an engineer and where my specific engineering experience is. Absolutely. That stuff excites me like none other. The Arduino experience, I was a coder. I've got all types of experience in that realm to be able to tackle that. But I mean, that's a big apple to take a bite off of. And I want to make sure that I know how to make looms and the mechanics of looms before I get into the CompuDobby and the computer control of them.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's just because it's informed a little bit by my deep dive into machine knitting. I love all of that. And I love the ability to experiment with creating the fabric. Like I want the fabric faster than I can even imagine it. So it's kind of like generating the fabric. And so if I could do that with the loom and then be, putting in different patterns into a weaving draft and then have it just come out faster than I can do it manually, I think that would be amazing. Just as it's a tool, it's a design tool, right? So yeah, right. Excited about that. How about a electric cone winder?
Everybody asks me about a cone winder.
There's so many questions.
I can't say never. There are options for cone winders out there. Let me start by saying that there are options. All the way from, the bottom of the line price point, I've seen industrial cone winders that come from Alibaba or AliExpress that honestly aren't that cost prohibitive if you actually break it down. Well, there's import and stuff like that. But as far as the quality of the machine you're getting, you can get into an industrial cone winder for right around $1,000, I think. So there's a lot of options already out there. So it's like, where does Daedalus come in? Like, where can I insert myself in? And I've actually made a prototype cone winder almost as a dare or a challenge. And I didn't get it all the way through. I got a good mechanical version it was a mechanical model that would run. It wasn't anywhere near production, but it's just one of those things that I just didn't have a home or didn't have a place. Like if it goes super fast and I'm competing with the industrial stuff from Alibaba, and then if I don't, then I'm competing down here at the bottom where I don't really want to compete or really can't compete. And so I'm trying to find my niche. I can't say that I won't ever develop a cone winder. I've got a really, really good idea for one that I think will work really well as far as the tensioning and all of that stuff goes and the cone support. But I got a lot of irons in the fire, and that'll be one that I circle back around on, I'm sure. So
yeah. Do you have any other projects? I know that you've been working on things in the past, other sort of innovations that you're looking into?
I've got a couple of I got a couple of projects on the back burner that I'm willing to talk about. I think we spoke about them earlier. I was developing some circular knitting machines. I developed a hat machine, a larger kind of 120 needle ish drum size, 10-inch, and then your common hat machine type cylinders, a sock machine size cylinders. Man, I built some good ones. I'm just going to be honest. Like my goal, there were plastic machines out there. There are metal machines out there. And where's Daedalus? Like, I wanted to come in somewhere in the middle. There's such a void, a gulf between those two items. I said, I want to be somewhere in the middle. I want to be lower priced, but I want to provide the feel and the longevity, wear resistance of the nice metal machines. And so I got a good model. I designed my own bearings, man. I mean, I had to really, it's a lot of stuff. I'm really proud on it. We tested it, sent it to a lot of people, torture tested it. At that point, the cam systems I was using was a sort of a hybrid design. So they weren't all plastic, as far as the wear life of your cams and, them having to strike the needles. And they weren't completely metal either. They were sort of a hybrid. And I got decent results out of it. I was getting failures around 10,000 rotes. And, everybody's, oh, that's fine. Just replace your part. That's fine. 10,000 rotes. You can, how many socks is that? Just replace your parts. And I don't like things that wear out. And I said, how can my original push was I want something that wears almost as long as the metal machines, but isn't as expensive. And the only way I could do that, I redesigned all my cams to be the finest tool steel available as far as like the hardness and the machining and how long it would last. I mean, it was on a scale above the needles even. And that was a choice. Do I make it harder than the needles or softer than the needles? Which one costs more type thing? Which one do you want to wear out first? And then long story short, I had a price point that I needed to come in to be able to offer it to the public. And when I designed those cams specifically in heavy tool steels, originally when I had spec'd it out, I was able to get those parts and keep my price point at where I needed it to be. And then a lot of things happened with imports and exports, and customs and all of that. And long story short, the cost of those cams shot the price just way out of the window. The cams themselves would have been like 25% the cost of the whole unit. And I just couldn't do it. It was heartbreaking. And I literally said, I'm going to put this, I put so much work into it. So it's not even about the money, man. It's just about the energy that I put into this thing that now I've got to move to the back burner. I spent 4 months of my time. I wasted a lot of my employees' time as far as, hey, we're going. And then I said, okay, we're not. And I just took it away from everybody and put it on the back burner until I could design these parts in a way that I could get them produced cheap enough to achieve that price point. I wanted to come in under $1,000 on the unit. Metal machines, there's some metal machines that are not much over $1,000, to be honest, all the $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. I've used a lot of them. I got a lot of experience in the metal machines, and I just didn't feel right offering something like my original price point I intended was about $800. I wanted not to go over $800. And these cams, when I had them, when everything happened, now all of a sudden my price point was $1,250, and I said I feel good. And people would say, hey, I'll still buy it. It's a Daedalus. I know your thing. I know the quality that's going to be in there, blah, blah, blah. And I just am not comfortable as a business owner producing something that I can't fully put my honest name behind and say it's as good as it can be. There is no better as far as this part goes. It's as good as it can be. It's going to last hundreds of thousands of rotes, not 10,000. It's going to last hundreds of thousands of rotes. And if that's that medium, not low hanging fruit, but it's a little higher, and that's what I'm reaching for, and that's what I'm trying to get for this product. I refuse to let it go until I have that, and I'm waiting. I thought it would be a month. I thought it would be 2 months, and things would settle down, and my prices on stuff that I'd order like this would come back down to what they always were, and they still have not. And I'm still waiting. Am I done with it? No. I mean, I got a lot of heart in that thing, and I want to come back to it. Do I know when I can? It's not really completely up to me, man. I'm doing all I can that I'm responsible for, which is trying to design a part that's as easy to produce and uses as little metal as it can necessarily, but is as easy to produce, and therefore it's as cheap to produce as it possibly can. And right now, it's just a little out of grasp. And hopefully, I mean, every time, as I say, every season, I'm like, it's fall, maybe after the winter, and here we've had a year go by and then more. And I don't know, I get a little depressed about it, but I still have everything. The design is wonderful. Honestly, nothing about it discouraged me. Like, oh, I hate this, or I've got to rework this whole system, or I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, I have high confidence on what I've got to date. And I really just need access to those parts. And that's what I'm waiting on.
I think everybody appreciates all of the energy and all of the attention to detail, and then your your very high standards for making sure that like a product is made well, that the parts last. All of that stuff is so important. And so I think everybody appreciates that. And I think with any of these projects, any of these ideas that you have, I think people will welcome them whenever they are ready, whenever you feel like they are ready. So I think that that'll be really wonderful if and when it happens, whenever it happens. Yeah. So thank you so much for all of the energy that you put into creating all these things for fiber artists and all these tools, and then sort of pushing our entire world forward and bringing new technology that we would not otherwise be able to access. So this is wonderful that you share all of your knowledge and experience and your background with all of us. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, I know that there are a bunch of different places where people can find you and find information about you guys. What's the best place that you could recommend for people to go if they're interested in learning more about your wheels, or like joining a bit of your community, meeting some other spinners and things?
Personally, I'm the most active with our Facebook group. That's the thing that I pay the most attention to. And it's the Daedalus Spinners group. You can search for it on Facebook. And that, like I say, we're a good group of, you got all the old croonies that are back with the original wheels, and we got all the new people that are buying the stuff that's, for sale on this past Black Friday. So we got the mixing of the old and the new. And that's where you can get out and ask honest questions and get really good answers. People don't make fun of you or make you feel stupid. We don't put up with any of that stuff in our group. So ask any questions. No questions are dumb. We do have a presence on Instagram, but that's really more for announcements. If you message us on there, it's not necessarily, we'll see it necessarily, but I wouldn't direct any questions or anything important. We do have email. If you've got a direct question and you don't want to mess with Facebook, just send an email to support@daedalus.spinningwheels.com. And then, of course, we have a website, daedalus.spinningwheels.com, and that's where we talk about all of our wheels. Honestly, Evanita, she's out in Washington, and she does all the internet and the website and all the graphics and all the menus and the manuals, and she has put together a which wheel for you type of chart that you can look and say, well, I'm this type of spinner, and this is what I'm looking for, and you can look and see where the wheels will suit you, or maybe where they won't suit you, and try to kind of fit you in with where you need to go. So you could do that work first. And then when you get on the Facebook group, you could ask some, more educated questions about, well, I've been looking at this and this, and I want to hear your personal experiences with them. So yeah, we're a big family, man. Even every time I sell a wheel, even if I don't sell a wheel at a festival, if somebody just comes up and talks to me for 10 minutes and they walk away and don't buy anything, I'm like, hey, we're still friends, right? Like if you see me somewhere, just talk to me again. Don't feel bad that you didn't buy a wheel. I just like to talk about this stuff. This has been a bucket list type thing for me. I can't describe how long, I told you I'm 29 years old, how long I've been working trying to get a niche, to get a business that I could really put my heart in. And how this evolved and became that is something that I genuinely can't put into words. It's exciting. I go to bed every night thinking about it, and I wake up every morning thinking about it, and it's wonderful. It doesn't get old.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. I mean, I can just absolutely hear like the passion exuding from you. So this is fantastic. And I also wanted to say thank you to Evanita as well, because she's been very, very helpful to me over email, and also Rebecca. But yeah, sending me lots of helpful resources, and just being super friendly. You guys are great to work with. So thank you so much. Wonderful. Thank you for joining me today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I hope to be back. I hope to have even more tools to talk about the next time I come.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Sweet Georgia Show today. I hope today's conversation with David Giles has maybe inspired you to go back and do some more spinning, learn about e-spinners, try an e-spinner if you've never tried one before. I absolutely loved hearing the energy and enthusiasm in David's voice when he talks about all the things that he's exploring and innovating and trying to fix and tweak and improve. And I just see so much forward momentum and movement in the work that he's creating, and it inspires me to do more spinning spinning as well. If you are interested in finding more about Daedalus Spinning Wheels, you can find them online, as he mentioned, on their Facebook group, Daedalus Spinning Wheels, and also they have a website and a shop there as well. Now, if you are interested in learning more about spinning, weaving, knitting, or crochet, please join us at the School of SweetGeorgia, where we have more than 100, almost 130 video-based fiber arts classes to take you from absolute beginner to confident crafter. We have monthly and annual all-access memberships where you can access all the courses, including spinning, weaving, dyeing, crochet, and more. And we also have a standalone spinning membership. So if you only want to focus on spinning courses for now, we have that for you as well. Until next time, keep creating, keep exploring, and remember there is always room for more color in your craft. This is Felicia, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.